the tour companies agree upon. This is currently Higginson's Book Company. They republish old books and help you find your ancestors. Now, does anybody know why it's called the Joshua Ward House? Anybody? Because Joshua Ward lived here at one point. He was a merchant. But I want to bring you back to before that. Sheriff George Corwin was a sheriff during the witchcraft trials. This was all his land. Now, after he died, he was a very hated man. A lot of people wanted a piece of him because they blamed him for the trials. His family didn't know what to do with his body, so they buried him in an unmarked grave, aka this spot somewhere over here, and later moved his body to one of the cemeteries in town. Now, because he was temporarily buried here, his energy remains here, and his family was brilliant. Nobody found his body. It worked, and then they were able to give him the proper burial he needed. Now, because of that, we believe he's the one causing a lot of the issues. Sheriff George Corwin was not known to be a friendly man. A lot of people say, looking back at the records, he might have been a sociopath. He seemed to lack any type of remorse. He was not a very pleasant man. Now, this building, do you guys know why that's called Front Street? Because that was the front street to the water. The other wall on the opposite side of you is an original seawall. The ocean would have come up back in there to the day. Now, what happened was, they filled in the ocean with dirt and gravel and they built on top of it. So this all would have been oceanfront. Maybe that's why he's so upset if he's still the one causing the issues. I'd be pretty upset if my oceanfront property turned into this. Now, as far as this building, it was most active in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. That's when we believe it was on a high cycle. In other words, a lot of activity. Nowadays, we believe the building has slowed down or it's on a low cycle where the activity has lessened. Now, with this building, some of the stuff that was reported to happen back then, temperatures fluctuating up and down 10 degrees for no reason, things disappearing off of people's desks and reappearing days or weeks later. A woman who worked here took my tour and she didn't realize we were going here as one of the stops. She worked here for 2 weeks in 1985 as an intern. She confirmed everything I've ever been told about this building. So all of this, what I'm about to get into, is true. She would often take her shoes off while working, and when she'd go to put them back on, they wouldn't be under her desk. She'd spend 10 or 15 minutes looking only to find them facing one of the front doors on the first floor. If that's not a way of spirit's telling you to get out very nicely, I don't know what is. They're kindly putting your shoes by the door. Now, she would say, there was no way her coworkers could do it, she said. Her desk went all the way to the ground on 3 sides. She would clearly see if a coworker was slithering up to her desk trying to steal her shoes. She'd also, her and a lot of her other coworkers would feel somebody bent over watching them work. And when they looked, nobody would ever be there. And she said a couple times she could see it so clearly she'd be afraid to look because she didn't want to actually see something that wasn't there. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I don't know, I can't explain it. She's like, I was too freaked out to look at what probably wasn't there. Now, other things happening in this building. Stuff is getting rearranged a lot on the 3rd floor. She said in one incident, they all left, they were having something go on up there. They left, and when they went back up about 10 minutes later, all the trash cans had been dumped out and were stacked up in an upside-down triangle. Now, I encourage you, when you go home, take out some really cheap silverware, really cheap glassware, and try to stack it in an upside-down triangle. I encourage you, and again, make sure it's cheap. It is not easy to stack things in the upside-down triangle. It's very difficult. And it would have taken more than 10 minutes for one person or 20 people to do that. Now, other stuff, there was a report of a man getting choked in this building. And also, one of the most vivid things that has happened is the flashing blue lights in the early 90s. Tons of people were reporting flashing blue lights outside of this building. And it got so bad, people were getting in accidents at night because they'd look to see what was flashing in blue, and they'd rear-end the car in front of them that had just stopped. It got so bad, the Salem police got involved, and they ordered the business owner to, turn those lights off. People are getting hurt. It's only a matter of time before somebody gets killed on that crosswalk because the wrong person is distracted. And the business owner thought it was a joke. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We do not have anything flashing or blue in the entire building. And needless to say, the police were not satisfied, so they asked him, can we search the building? And he's like, go ahead, have fun, have at it. And when they searched the building, they did not find a single source of anything flashing or blue in the entire building. Not even an LED light, not that anybody used them in the early 90s. So do you know what the police did? They ordered the business owner to put up curtains in those windows. The curtains were in the windows for a good 7 signs to prevent people from seeing a light that they couldn't prove was actually happening. That's pretty awesome. And it was the 2 windows to the 2nd floor on the left-hand side. You will no longer see curtains in those windows. Is there something weird happening back there or something?
Yeah, we just like heard it. It was like when you open a soda bottle, kind of like that. It's not that.
Weird. Well, another interesting thing, they heard like air, they said like when you open a soda bottle. But what's weird is back there, the most common thing that's reported on my tours is people will see a shadow leave this building and walk into that building, but not through a door, like through the building. That happened actually on the tour I did last night. And I told them at the end of the tour, but apparently the girls saw it within the first 5 minutes of being here. And I've seen it before too, where I've been talking, I've looked here, and I've seen somebody run across, leaving this building from a place that doesn't have a door and running into that building. Again, and if it were a living person, their head would hit the brick like, you know, you hear the snap. Also, one of the other paranormal things that happens at this building, there is a reason why I encourage you all to sit on the wall, because you are the guinea pigs here. I want to see if anything will happen. Now, one of the most common things that happens when people are sitting on this wall is people will get pushed, or like they'll have somebody touch their shoulders. Now, the first time it happened, and I don't mention it till the end of the stop because I don't want anyone pranking anybody, but the first time it happened, I had 2 14-year-old girls on my tour, and generally I have good kids on my tour. These girls were terrors. They needed Dr. Phil or something, less sugar, something. They were on their iPods the whole time, laughing, screaming, being extremely disrespectful to myself and everybody on the tour, and their parents were nowhere to be seen. I was their babysitter. Now, when we got to this stop, I was standing here, everybody on the tour was circled around me, and those girls were the only ones that were actually sitting on this wall. Now, with what happened next, at the end of the tour, what happened, they came up to me, they said something weird happened, and one of the girls had tears in her eyes. And I'm thinking they got a bad text message. No, that's not what happened. They explained it to me like this. The first girl said, I thought she was pushing me because I kept getting shoved forward. The second girl said, I thought she was pushing me because I kept getting shoved forward. Apparently, the only logical thing to do when you're 14 is to hit each other like this, because that's what they did. And while they were going like this, they both got shoved forward. They said they flew forward about 3 to 4 inches on the wall. They almost fell off the wall. Now, immediately they said they looked behind them and beside them and under the wall. Nobody was anywhere near them. They had no explanation as why that would happen. And one of the girl with the tears in her eyes said, you don't think it's like the ghost guy, do you? And I'm thinking in my head, your iPod probably woke the dead. But what came out of my mouth was, probably, but no worries, he won't follow you home. The spirits stay to what was local to them. Now, fast forward to about a month ago, we had some crazy stuff happen. I had a huge school group here. And it was about 80 kids, all sophomores. I'll wait till they go by. It was about 80 high school kids, all sophomores. And what happened is there was a boy, as I was talking about, you know, it was probably only 10 minutes into the stop, I was talking about the hauntings in the building. He bolted off the wall and ran to the bottom of the driveway over there and started crying. And a chaperone had to go comfort him. Now, if you know anything about high school boys, there was no way I was about to stop the tour and ask and draw everybody's attention to him and ask how he is and what's wrong. I didn't want to embarrass him anymore. So at the end of the tour, I waited and I went up to him and I asked, are you okay? Is everything all right? What happened? And I was shocked at his appearance. He had tears streaming down his face, snot coming out of his nose. He was like breathing erratically. And he said he was sitting on the wall and he felt a hand push his back, but he said it didn't feel like a hand. He said it felt like static. I said, what do you mean a hand that felt like static that wasn't really a hand? And he said it was static in the shape of a hand that pushed him. He said it felt like somebody static pushed him. And he started crying again. I said, and I calmed him down. I said, oftentimes when people are touched by a spirit, it'll feel like a static has just pushed you, a heavy static. When you walk through a spirit, sometimes it'll feel like you've walked through static. And he felt a little better about that. And again, I comforted him as well that it's not going to follow you home. As we were walking to the next stop, all of his friends who had apparently never seen him cry before gathered around him in a circle were comforting him. They were all extremely serious about this. And one of his friends came up to me on the way to the next stop and they said, I just want you to know, like, I've never seen him cry before, and I'm actually kind of worried. So I just want you to know he's not pranking you. And I'm like, thank you. I really appreciate it. He's like, yeah, like, I've never seen him this upset. So, yeah. It was interesting. And I felt happy being validated by his friend, too, because he literally had a circle of people around him comforting him. Nobody was making fun of him. Now, do you guys have any questions about anything I've said?